This is a hard question,
Sure.
not that the other ones haven't been. When you were thinking your private thoughts at this point, when you were listening to the therapists and the physicians, what did you believe? What did you doubt?
I don't think I actually doubted much. I mean, I, in my mind, truly believed that this might be the answer. And
Hoped or believed?
I think I hoped, and I was waiting to see if it would resolve, and it didn't eventually. But I was also kind of naively trusting them and assuming that this was right, especially because people
it's
around me.
hard to tell how much of that's naive.
Yeah.
You know, the thing about being an adolescent is that, you know how people are, they're always on the cases of, on a teenager's case to not be so susceptible to peer pressure. It's actually, being susceptible to peer pressure is developmentally appropriate for a teenager. So imagine when you're a child, you're susceptible to the influence of your parents. Okay, well, when you're a teenager, you're not ready to be on your own. Who should you be susceptible to? Well, obviously, your peers. Why? Well, they're going to be your community. So if you're a normal teenager, what your peers think matters.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're already in a milieu at school where you've got your pronouns, you've got your male identity, plus there are figures of authority who are driving that home. I don't think that the fact that you were susceptible to that is indicative of what I would describe as naivety.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you'd expect. The other thing that's useful to know is that imagine that two things determine how you respond in a situation. One might be your personality, your temperament, even your knowledge. The other might be the demands, the social demands of the situation.
Yeah.
Okay, then you might ask, for the typical person, which is the greater influence? And the answer is clearly the social influence.
Yeah.
That's what it means to be social. So here's an example. People decide when they're not hungry by noticing when they've eaten the same amount of food on the same size plates as everyone else at the table. So even something as biological as hunger and its satiety is actually mediated by social observation. Well, why? Well, you don't want to be the person who habitually eats all the food, right? You're not going to make yourself popular, especially when food is scarce. People are very sensitive to social pressure, norms. That's appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay, so now your situation is you're confused. Well, puberty does that, but you had additional reason. And now you've been delivered an identity. And it's in your interest in a variety of ways to accept that because it actually solves a complex problem in principle, which is what the hell you're supposed to do with your fear. And then people are promising that it's going to work. Then you also have the situation where, at least in potential, the testosterone is making you more confident.
Yeah.
So I don't think you should have necessarily expected yourself to sort that out. I am curious, though, and it's worth thinking through. Like, you told me already that you had a conflict. You knew there was something in the past, or did you? How much did you know that this thing in the past hadn't been addressed?
I knew that it had happened, and I was very aware of what happened, but I didn't think it was also something that needed to be addressed until probably around 16.
And you said you figured that out because these other things didn't work?
Because I had gone through the surgery, I had been on testosterone, I was fitting in much better as a teenage boy than I had been as a teenage girl, and everything was worse. I was so much worse off, and I was so much more suicidal.
Okay, and so so how did you come to the realization that it might have had something to do with the abuse?
I didn't. I think I sort of just knew once I was looking at my life and looking at the way that I was acting, and I couldn't function properly, to put it bluntly. I figured there was something still going on that I had.
Yeah, well, the thing is, too, you're also getting older during all this period of time. And that means that, as you age and mature and gather more wisdom and are less naive, even, let's say, you take a different view of things that happened to you in your past. Right? So you can realize the significance, like, you're not, what the hell's a 6-year-old going to do about understanding sexual abuse? Like, no, that's not going to happen. So then at what point do you start even seeing that it was abuse?
Yeah.
And then at what point do you start while delving into its effects. Maybe you could make a case that, you weren't ready or able to do that until you were 17, especially given that you had an alternate hypothesis and
Yeah.
strategy at hand.